1. Megabongcloud. E4, E5, King E2. The well-known Bongcloud opening, a display of disrespect toward your opponent. However, you could triple your disrespect by playing the Megabongcloud. Start with pawn F3. Your opponent, unaware of your brilliant opening, responds like any normal player, typically with E5, pawn C3, pawn D5. Now, having created a clear path for your king, begin with King F2. Your confused opponent will likely continue developing pieces, while you progress to E3, D3, C2, Queen E1. Your opponent might check you with Bishop F5, but that won't matter because you were planning to move your king to D1 square anyway. Congratulations, you've successfully executed the full Megabongcloud opening. 2. Sandommierski Gambit. Another disrespectful opening begins with the move Knight C3. Regardless of your opponent's moves, persist with this move. If your opponent accepts the gambit, they will take your right half of the board. And revert to the starting position. 3. Drunk Knight. If your knight spent the previous night drinking, it starts on H3. Yes, this is the first move. This move was actually played by Magnus Carlsen, trolling his opponent during the Chess.com Pro Chess League in 2018. His opponent, Alexei Drev, surprisingly responded with Knight H6. The game proceeds with pawn F4, D5, Knight F2, Knight G4, pawn E2. Black then captures the knight, and Magnus develops his king to F2. The game thereafter progresses entirely normally, leading to Magnus's victory. 4. Amazon Attack. Begin your game with pawn D4. Your opponent responds with D5, and you develop your queen to the D3 square. 5. Toilet Opening. If your game starts with the Sicilian defense, continue with pawn F4. Your opponent then responds with D5, and you developing your knights. 6. Hippopotamus Defense. Your opponent starts with E4, and you play Knight H6. However, there is a setup called the Hippopotamus Defense. It starts with E4, G6, D4, Bishop G7, Knight F3, Pawn D6, Knight C3, Knight D7, Bishop E3, Pawn E6. Your opponent may respond differently, but you continue building the setup with Pawn B6, Bishop B7, and the final move, Knight E7. This is not a bad opening. You have your bishops attacking the D4 and E5 pawns, you're ready to castle, and you can easily defend yourself with this setup. 7. Giraffe Attack. After E4, E5, the most common moves, play Knight C3. Your opponent plays Bishop C5, and you enter into the Giraffe Attack with Queen G4, targeting your opponent's weak G7 pawn. But if you find yourself in this position playing as black, you have a strong chance of winning white's queen. Play Knight F6, leaving your pawn undefended and attacking the queen. White will likely take the G7 pawn, and then you can play Rook G8, attacking the queen, and the only safe square for it will be H6. Congratulations, white has fallen for the trap. Now you can execute a brilliant sacrifice with bishop takes F2. White takes, and you play Knight G4, leaving your opponent in an awkward position and without a queen. 8. Creepy Crawly. This peculiar opening begins with pawn A3. Black continues with normal development and responds with E5. White plays H3, and black advances their pawn towards the center with D5. You can continue building your position with E3, D3, and place both of your bishops on E2 and D2.